So we are back, second day, day 2. This is going to be part 2 of the video. We're going to get onto the polishing, but first step before that is taping. I know some people, a little bit controversial, I know a lot of people just don't tape and they just use a polish that maybe won't stain the trim, but I find I still like to tape everything just to be safe. Now I don't go crazy taping, like I'm not going to be Picasso and tape this thing up to perfection. I'm just getting some tape on the areas that I know I might bleed over on, just to give me a little bit of peace of mind, and primarily to plastics, but mostly like this Porsche, this side trim here is like a matte paint. It's not like a plastic or anything. So the matte paint you obviously don't want to polish. So that's like one thing you would definitely want to tape up, is anything that's like matte painted or anything like that. And just, you know, it's good practice to tape up the plastics that you might end up hitting. But again, don't think you need to be Picasso and tape this up to perfection and spend, you know, 2 hours, you know, taping up the trim. Like it doesn't need to be perfect. Just get some tape on the car. And then as far as tape goes, you can see the tape that I'm using. This is tape that I've been using for over 10 years now. I was first introduced to this tape at esoteric training with Matt Mormon from Obsessed Garage, and I've been using it ever since. This is the Kamoi tape from Japan. I've tried dang near everything, all the 3M stuff, a bunch of different types of tape, and I just go back to this Kamoi tape just with how easy it is to use. And when you polish on it, you're not getting a bunch of like tape residue from the top side of the tape. If you do like end up polishing on the tape a little bit, that can then get in your pad and like start scratching stuff up. That's a big thing. A lot of the top coats on the tape can be kind of funky, and then you end up having issues. I know some people will tape like headlights. I don't think that needs to be taped. Emblems, things like that, I don't usually tape. Just personal preference. And then, you know, I will tape some of these plastics down here where it, you know, gets a little intricate. And also, you know, taping, if you tape well, instead of having to use, you know, in some areas having to use like a really small machine, like going to like a 2-inch or 3-inch or 1-inch pad, if you tape well, then you can just run a 5-inch and it's just a lot more efficient. So back here, it's probably the most intricate part of the car, and if you look, someone's already polished back here, and you can see there's white residue on the trim. So that's literally what you're trying to avoid by doing this. So now, you know, me taping is kind of not pointless, but it's just a little bit more annoying because I'm gonna have to clean this up anyways when we're done. I'm not taping glass. I'm not going crazy taping, you know, like any of the PPF edges. Will be a little careful around those, you know, headlights, taillights, things like that. I'm not taping panel edges or anything crazy. We'll exercise some caution while we're polishing so that we don't have to go to like the, you know, nth degree of taping everything up. So now we do have, like we spoke before, PPF on the front and now bare paint everywhere else back. So we've got like kind of 2 different cars to treat here. So we'll first figure out what's going to work best on the regular paint, and then we'll figure out what's going to work on the PPF separately, because it's going to be a whole different process for the PPF. So what I will do for the test spot is I'll find usually the worst area, and that will usually be my test spot. A lot of people will just pick an area that they can see the best, and usually it's like the roof or the hood or something like that, and they'll dial in a process on something that is really not that scratched up compared to maybe like the door or lower part of the door or something, and then they'll do that. They'll figure out their process, and they're like, cool, knock that out around the car, and then they're wondering why their door, like they didn't get as much correction on the door or like some of the areas that are heavier. So I prefer to start with a test spot that is on the worst side of things, and then you know if it's a little lighter, you may be able to just back off on some of those lighter areas, or you know for sure it's going to correct those areas, and you've got that test spot set for like a worser area. So we'll show you guys what all I have on the cart here to get started with polishing, and we'll start knocking out a test section to see what we can get going. So we've got my cart set up with everything I believe I'm going to need, a slew of compounds and polishes, pads, microfiber towels, polishers, lights, panel prep. So I'm all set up and ready to start polishing. One thing I did want to go over is a lot of people will look at this and be like, wow, you have a lot of stuff. And when you're polishing a black car like this and you're looking to go to like the 90% range, you need a lot because you have no idea what's going to work. On one car, you know, rehab might be like my correction, and then on another car, rehab might be like my finishing polish, depending on the type of paint. Some cars, H9, you know, may cut perfectly and finish out great, and then on another car, it may be way too heavy and causing extreme micro marring and too heavy for the defects, and maybe you're going to jump down to like Jescar Performance Cut. So there's a lot of different products because you have no idea what the car needs, but you can simplify this process a lot. If you're just looking to go to like the 60, 70, maybe 80% range, you can do a lot with probably just 2 products and make it work, depending on the type of pads you have. But with this car, we are trying to get to like that 90% to where it's dang near perfect for what we can get out of it. And that's cut, finish, and like proper finish, no DA haze, no pigtails, no hooks, nothing. So that's why we need a lot of this. So I am gonna grab what I believe might work, and we're gonna give that a shot, and we'll go from there. And my pick, based off what I see, how many deep scratches it is, I know the Porsche paint's pretty soft. So I'm gonna start with something like I know really well, which would be like Jescar correcting compound, not the heaviest. So it's a nice middle tier compound. We'll see how that does with either a microfiber pad or a wool and see if that gets the correction we need. If not, we'll jump up to something different. And then I know for probably a fact, I'll try some things, but I'm 99% sure I'm gonna need some perfect finish to be able to finish this jet black paint down, especially because there's no metallic in it. So perfect finish is usually my go-to for finishes like that. So we'll get that going, and we will see what kind of correction we get with what I believe might work. Alrighty, so I have my skin grip set up here next to me. It's sitting nice and comfortable. I've got my compound and polish I think might work. With compound and polish, as always, especially if they've been sitting a while, shake them up. These do tend to separate, and you do want like all your abrasives to be nice, evenly distributed. So shake these up for a good, 20, 30 seconds or so. I got a brand new pad here, so I will put a little bit of extra product on the first round. Normally I'll do 3 pea-sized drops every panel, but for this one I'll do a little bit more. And then we will start doing our test spot. Scrub it in so that you don't have a lot of that sling and stuff like that. And I'm gonna work like a 2x2 area, about shoulder width. So I'm probably gonna play in this, kind of front half of this lower door here. And that's gonna be kind of your working size. And I'm gonna do 3 to 4 passes depending on how much I see the polish breaking down. And we will go from there and see what that gets us. With my pressure, since I am doing some compounding, I'm not just gonna be letting the machine do the work. I am gonna be putting, a little bit of pressure, probably 5 to 8 pounds of pressure onto the machine to get that extra correction and get that abrasive to break down properly. So you'll kind of see that as I work through, and obviously I'll be doing slow, even passes, so you'll be able to see exactly how I'm working. So I'm just defining my area. That's about the size area I'm gonna work, and then I'll just start working my passes.
I do these, I'm overlapping 50%, if you can see, so that you're getting that even dispersion and even polishing pressure. When I get down to the bottom here, there's a little lip at the bottom of the door, so I'm giving it a little scrubbing action towards the bottom, just to get into that lip a little bit. Here I'm angling my machine so that it's allowing it to free spin in that little groove. And this is kind of an advanced technique, but you can do that, or you can do what I was doing before, and kind of that scrubbing action towards the bottom to get that edge work nice and tight.
So that's about your polishing pass, and then you can just wipe it off from there and check your work. And to me, looking at that, it looks really good. I've got a couple things still in there. Towards the lower part of the door, they're pretty deep. I do have a lot of DA haze, which is to be expected doing this heavy of a compounding. But to go from, you know, the amount of scratches, there's not really a lot of scratches in here. There's a lot of just DA haze, which we could get out in the next step, and then go to, boom, crazy scratches. It's a pretty big difference for one compounding set. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just trying to check everything over, seeing if I missed any areas. I've got a couple little deep line scratches in this groove and down here that I'll probably hit again, and then we'll check after that. I'm gonna get in those grooves just a little bit better. And you can see, so a lot of people may see that and go, oh, I need a mini machine to get in here. And that's just not true. If you work your 5-inch right, you can pretty much get it anywhere and not miss, you know, not really anywhere, but you can get it in a lot of places that you can not have to switch back to like a 3-inch or a 1-inch machine like all the time. So if you can see, like in this groove right here, if I go up in here, it's not gonna free spin because it's just it's kind of carrying the gap. So you're gonna end up missing a lot of this area. So a lot of what you can do is you can scrub the machine like I was doing at the bottom of the door there, or you can turn the machine on its side a little bit, and that'll allow you to get into that groove a lot better. So
you'll see that here as I work just this area. If I go like this, see how the machine's not spinning that great. Here I'm just polishing here, and I'm missing this completely. You know, if you can see, like I'll go like that, and you're gonna miss a lot of that. So with this, if I turn the machine on its side, I'm getting all of that groove. And then you can also do some scrubbing where you're digging the edge of the machine into that groove and kind of scrubbing up and down to get full correction in that area.
And then that's good for there. And then I'll get the bottom of the door a little bit better with the 5-inch too. now I'll inspect, and yeah, so I got all those scratches out that I was seeing up there. That's all good. And we'll check the bottom. Yeah, a lot better correction. Now it's definitely hazy because I'm using a pretty aggressive compound and pad on a pretty soft jet black Porsche paint, but in terms of scratch removal, we're there. I've got a couple deep ones which I don't want to chase. Those are too deep, especially worrying about the lower door. I don't need to go, you know, for 100% correction down there. This is plenty, and it's a huge difference from, obviously look past the haze, but look at the swirls and scratches, and then you get over to here where it's just scratch crazy. So that's what I would call, you know, so far, if that haze was gone, you know, this would be a solid 85–90% correction. I've got just a couple little ones there that if you got out would be 100, but in terms of keeping the paint, you know, as thick as possible and keeping it to a level that's relatively maintainable, this is really as far as you want to go. So what we'll do now is, you don't want to get that compounding step and say, cool, I figured out what's going to work for compounding, compound the whole car, and then you go back and you go to finish and you can't finish it out, and then you've compounded the whole car that way. So you want to dial in your first step and second step right now on this test section to make sure that you have a process for your polishing and your second step that can remove this, and that you haven't gone too heavy to where you need to do like a really extensive second stage, because 90% of your polishing work should be done in your compounding step. If you're doing a two-step, the polish should be the easy part. That should be very quick. It should get out this haze no problem. So we'll run that now, and we will check and make sure that we can get all this haze out. So for that, I'm gonna pick my trusty Old Faithful Sonax Perfect Finish. So we'll grab that, because I know just on this black paint, I know that's what I'm gonna need. Just years of experience. I could maybe use therapy, but I know Perfect Finish is gonna do it, and I'm gonna pair that with the white edge guard polishing pad from Buff and Shine. I know that'll do really well with Perfect Finish. So let's just double check, make sure that my assumptions and my expertise doesn't fail me. Again, shake your polishes. And you'll do the same thing. Now, the foam pad has a little bit more give, so you won't have to go as crazy in these grooves, but you do want to get in there, because with as aggressive as I went in those areas, there's a lot more haze there, because I was having to get a little more aggressive to get those scratches out, working the machine. So, but this, again, this process should be a lot easier than the compounding. This should go very quickly. And if you're having to chase stuff in your polishing step, that means your compounding step was either too aggressive, or you're gonna have to add a third step in there, which then you're getting into the weeds and kind of getting to a level that is probably not maintainable, and just gets a little too crazy.
So with this polishing step, I'm gonna use a lot less pressure. Now I'm just kind of resting my hand on there. I'm not putting as much pressure, and I'll do a little bit faster arm movements. Just working out the polish, and you'll be able to see that Perfect Finish will break down. And once it goes a little clear, that's kind of when you know that it is ready to wipe off and you've broken down all that abrasive.
So that should be your polishing step. Again, very easy, very simple. If this isn't getting the haze out, then we have to do something else with our compounding step. So I would say that did its job. I've got a little bit of haze left over. So let me see. May need a different pad, or I may need to work the polish just a little bit more. So let's see, but this is, I would say, 90% haze free compared to what it was. Let's hit it just one time really quick and see if I can knock that haze down just a little bit more to get a more true finish.
Might have been working just a little bit too fast, and this is why you do your test section, you know, to learn what it's going to need. So I'm going to slow down my arm movement a little bit, allow that perfect finish to work a little bit more, to kind of break down that haze. So I'm slightly more pressure, still not a lot of pressure, not as much as compounding, and I'm just working a little bit slower. That way the perfect finish and the pad have more time to break down that haze. And don't worry, we will bring you in a little bit closer here in a minute and really show you guys what I'm talking about when I say like the swirls, the haze, you know, what to look for with the, you know, the compound and polish breaking down. That way you have a better understanding of what I'm looking at when I'm talking about this stuff. Right now I'm just trying to execute this test section to make sure that my process is dialed.
Yeah, there we go. So that's my process right there. So I just needed to slow down a little bit, allow the perfect finish to work a little bit more, which means I just had probably slightly too much haze, but that right there is a damn near perfect correction finish. I mean, for a two-step on a lower door that was that hammered, it is damn near perfect. And the haze is almost non-existent. So we'll bring you guys in a little bit closer here and we'll show you kind of the difference of what we went from the door to the front here, so you can see the difference. And we'll start working on some other parts of the car and we'll dig in a little bit deeper and show you guys like what we're talking about with the swirls, the haze, and things of that nature. So you can see all those scratches, and you'll get into an area that I started to polish, bled over a little bit there, and then right there is kind of my final area, and you can basically see almost no swirls, haze gone. That is a damn near perfect jet black paint. So I just wanted to stop for a second and show you guys what I'm talking about when I'm saying haze, because I understand I'm saying it a lot during these videos, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you may not understand it. So this is what I'm talking about when we say DA haze. And this happens from the compounding stage. You're using a heavy abrasive and you're breaking down basically larger scratches into smaller micro scratches. And this is what you want to have a keen eye for, because if you go from, you know, when you have this finish and go to this finish, it's a completely different level of clarity to the paint. And if you end up leaving your finish looking like this, it may be scratch free, but it's still going to look a little bit dull. So when you go to the nth degree of final finishing polish, this is what you're looking for. No hooks, no haze, no pigtails, just a crisp, clear reflection through the edge of the light. So we're gonna dig into this quarter panel because it has a lot of different curvatures and different things that I can show you on it, rather than just doing like a flat hood or roof or something like that. This, you know, has a lot of curvature. There's a lot of things I can kind of teach you and show you in here as well. The biggest thing is, I want to say is like remove obstacles where possible. So like right now, this is down. Like I've seen some people in videos where they're polishing this exact car and they're like trying to go around the wing and they're like polishing up against this like the trunk. The trunk is the trunk. If we lift this trunk up, that completely eliminates this obstacle. It completely eliminates you having to polish up against this, potentially like burning this other panel. So you're just getting that out of the way. And then same with like the door, if you want to, once you get down to this area, you could pop this door open and then you can polish right up to this edge and not have to worry about like polishing onto the door. So just removing those obstacles where possible just makes your job a whole lot easier. So that's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop this trunk, I'm gonna open that door, and that will allow me to polish a lot easier without having to worry about all that stuff. So look, I go from this to pop this open, and now I have full range of access in here, full range of access right here without this wing in the way. And then same with the door. When I get to this area, I just realized if I open the door now, you're not going to see anything. You're just going to see a door. But whenever I get to the door, I will probably polish. Once I get to this area, I'll open the door just so that I can get into this edge without worrying about polishing onto this door, potentially polishing this area twice or burning the edge or anything like that. So we will get started with our process. So we dialed it in. We know exactly what we need to do. I'm using the obviously the black and white Eurofiber, what people call the Oreo pad, as my cutting. This is a nice like medium cutting pad, a nice microfiber, and then Just Carb correcting compound, because this is just a nice medium cutting compound. It's not too aggressive, finish is decent, and it's just something that I'm very familiar with. So I'm grabbing a 5-inch. I'm gonna knock out 95% of this panel with the 5-inch. A lot of people would probably grab like a 3-inch and be like, oh, this area is really small, there's a lot of curvature here, things like that, and they'll grab a 3-inch machine. I want to show you guys how you can increase your efficiency and use your 5-inch machine and work it to be able to do these panels without switching machines all the time, because every time you switch your machine, you're just wasting time and efficiency, and the more you can knock out with your 5-inch, the faster you'll be. So that's kind of the biggest takeaway here. So I'll show you, I'm gonna work, again, 2x2 sections, so I'll probably work from here over to here. I'm gonna kind of stop it at this body line, and we'll kind of, again, work that section over there. We'll work this separately above this body line, and we'll kind of work that body line as we get there. So we'll start with this section here. And what you'll see that I do here is I'm basically going to, a lot of people will be like, oh, get my main area, and they're like, oh, I have some scratches along the top, like 1 inch. I'm gonna grab my 1-inch machine and hit all these like tight corners. You can do that, it's just not efficient at all. If you can get that while you're doing your main step with your 5-inch, you're just gonna be so much more efficient. So what I'm gonna do once I get up to this edge is I'm actually gonna lift the machine up towards the edge just a little bit, kind of like this, lifting it up towards the edge, putting the pad slightly on its edge, and I'm gonna scrub. I'm gonna scrub like this while the machine's going along that edge, and that's gonna get that pad and that abrasive all up in there and work that and get those scratches out without having to use a 1-inch machine. So this is what I'm talking about when I say, learn to use the 5-inch so that you're not having to switch out to a 1-inch or a 3-inch all the time, and you can knock out 95% of the car with your 5-inch, and just go back to those couple areas where it's dang near impossible to fit a 5-inch. That's where you grab your 3-inch. So you'll see what I do, here. I'm on edge. You can almost see the machine. As soon as I turn it on edge, it acts completely different. And then I'm gonna run along that edge, slapping that pad against the edge, really watching it and being super fine-tuned with where the edge of that pad is. And then once I get here, I'm in this groove a little bit. I'm gonna give it some nice scrubbing action. And then again here, I'm on edge and I'm scrubbing up against that trim. And I'm hitting my edge. That's all I'm focusing on right now. And then I'll come back and I'll smooth the pad out. I'll go over it with a little bit of smooth, let it cool down for a second. Potentially here I'm finishing down that abrasive a little bit more. And then I'll go back. I'm going on edge. I'm getting that edge really nice and tight again. And then I'm getting all the way up here, and that's about where I'm gonna stop. I'm just gonna scrub in that groove a little bit. And then there you go. I'm gonna feather this out, go over it. This is a nice flat pad.
The only problem with doing that is you do develop some dust because you're using that pad on its edge. And it's just letting that dust come out. But from there, I can wipe that off and just double check it if you really need to. The nice thing about the test spot is if you know what you're doing, and this will be probably the last section that I wipe off individually to check. If you've dialed in your test spot, the nice thing is you can compound like a whole side of a car and know that as long as you're working the machine right, that you're going to get it out because you've done that test spot and you don't have to check every individual section. You can just go through, bang out the whole side of the car, and then go back and wipe it off, bang out the back, bang out the other side, wipe it off. You're super efficient because you know your test spot is what you tested. So it's going to work, and then you just wipe it off. You can come back after you've wiped off that compound, check it over. If you've missed any little areas, then you can kind of mark those and get those individually. And then you just go into your polishing and you can polish the whole car out that way. And it just makes it super efficient because you're not stopping every 2-foot spot. You know, oh, did I get it right? You know, whatever, you know, as long as you're working the machine right, you're working your edges and you've done your test spot, you are good to go. And you don't need to keep kind of micromanaging your polishing process. So I'll check this just to be safe, but I know, yeah, like this is damn near perfect. And I'm checking up against my edge. I've got no scratches up against the edge. I got some haze, obviously, because I was scrubbing the pad up there, but scratches are completely gone. So I am good to go. Good to go with that process. So I'll knock out the rest of this panel and then we will move on to the polishing. So I've already hit this area in a separate section. Now I'm just kind of working this top edge here. I've hit kind of halfway into this groove on these sections. So now I wanted to show you and kind of explain this process here. So you could grab a 3-inch for this area totally, and you know, I wouldn't even blame you for it. But I want to show you how you can knock this out with a 5-inch machine and not have any issues. So I'm working this area. Obviously all up here is fine for the 5-inch. I'm getting in the groove down here, which I've already kind of hit, but I'm just double hitting it there. But you know, I can hit all these areas right here totally fine. 3-inch. I taped this off, so I'm good. If I run over that a little bit, you know, a lot of people would grab a 3-inch for these A-pillar areas, but you can totally knock this out with a 5-inch if you're careful. And then getting down into this area is where people would get confused and think they might even need a 1-inch or a 3-inch. I can get this with a 5-inch using the methods I already taught you. By putting the pad on its edge, I can get all the way down into this groove. So I'm basically, you know, I've hit it halfway up with this piece, and I've hit it halfway here, and then you're also able to get in there if you really want in one whole go by putting the pad on its edge and getting in like this. So if you could see, like, that's how the machine would be spinning. I've got the machine way up on its edge here, but it'll get in there and still be totally fine. This whole panel has now been polished or compounded. I can wipe this off, and at that point is when you can check it, you know. But again, like I said, you don't need to micromanage because you have already done your test spot. Trust your test spot that it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, it was one of two things. Either there's some scratches that just probably aren't going to come out and you probably don't want to chase them, or you know, you messed up a little bit and didn't hit the area, or you know, it was an edge that you missed or something like that. It was either your error by not hitting it enough, or you know, scrubbing in, or things of that nature, or it's just something that, dude, you just got to leave it. Like, it's, you know, it's something that doesn't need to come out and is just too deep for polishing. So there's a whole panel compounded, and I'll give that a quick check over. And mostly when I'm checking this over, I'm going to be checking my edges and making sure that I haven't missed anything. Definitely going to be checking in here, which I haven't. It's
you know, damn near perfect. Got like one little straight line there. I'm gonna leave it because it looks pretty deep. Again, another scratch right here, which I'm gonna leave because it looks very, very deep. It's almost down to, not sure if you can see that there, but it's almost white. And I think that's one that I'm probably gonna leave because I don't want to chase it too much and potentially cause, you know, kind of remove too much paint. So yeah, that looks good, and we'll go back through with our polishing and finish that all out. I won't bore you guys with another 15 hours of polishing. We'll jump back here or there as I have some like little tips and tricks to show you guys. But we're basically just gonna repeat this process over the whole vehicle. I'll show you some tips and tricks here or there, and then once we get to the PPF, which will be, I'm gonna knock out this whole back half of the car first, compounded, polished, and then we'll knock out the PPF and we'll rejoin once we get to the PPF and see what's gonna work on there and go from there. So we are nearing completion. I have the whole back half of the car is fully complete. So full two-step. Got to look a little bit crazier than I expected, but the condition of the paint and what the customer wants dictated that I had to go a little crazy. So I am about 6-7 hours into just like the back half of the car doing a two-step, which honestly isn't too bad for a jet black, and I'm literally going for like 90-95% correction, going to that, like, you know, kind of crazy level. So it's coming out pretty good, but the next step now, before we're kind of finished with the whole polishing process, is the PPF. So we've got the back half done, we're good to go there. Now I got to see what's going to work on PPF, and with the PPF you don't want to go crazy, and the PPF isn't in bad shape. Compared to the rest of the car was screwed. The PPF has just some very fine swirls and mostly just like a little bit of water spotting, and just looks a little dated, to be honest. It just needs a nice polish to kind of bring out that gloss, get some of the spots off, get some of that fine you know, swirling out of there, and we should be good to go. So on PPF, I always like to stick with just like a finishing pad. So I'm gonna go with the same Buff and Shine white foam finishing that I was using to finish the rest of the car, but I'm not gonna use Perfect Finish. My preference actually for PPF polishing is, I've been loving P&S Rehab. It has just like the right amount of cut and the right amount of finish for film. It's got a little bit more cut than the Perfect Finish, so you know, you get that out of there, and especially since you're pairing it with a finishing pad, you want to get that just a little bit more cut. So yeah, this combo seems to work, you know, perfect for me for PPF. So we'll give that a try and kind of see how that goes. Now with the PPF, you don't really want to act like you're polishing the paint, because again, you're polishing the film. You're really polishing on like that top coat of the film, and there's only so much top coat. It's actually very, very thin. So you're not like correcting the film. You know, you're just giving it a quick buzz just to kind of clean it up. You're not going to get the film perfect if it's scratched or whatever. Don't even try to go for that. You're just really just trying to clean it up a little bit. So you'll see my working area is going to be a lot larger than on the paint, and my arm speed and things like that with the polisher are going to be a lot faster, because again, I'm not trying to heat up the film too much. I'm not trying to go for crazy correction. I'm just giving it a quick buzz just to kind of clean the film and you know, give it a nice polish. So we'll do that now on the hood.
So I'm gonna do like a quarter of the hood at a time, you know, so it's a much bigger section than I would normally do. And you can see my arm speed is pretty fast because I don't want to put too much heat into the film. So that's kind of my working section, and I'll just do a couple passes this way. You do the same amount of passes, your kind of normal 4 passes. Let the polish still break down. Try not to put too much heat into it, and just, you know, go in with the understanding that you're polishing film, you're polishing a top coat. You know, it is still plastic. You know, you're not going to get full correction out of this. You know, if your film is that bad, at that point, you're just going to have to make decisions to replace it or just live with it.
So there's that section, and I'll just continue doing that over the whole hood. And I'll split that up into, you know, 4 kind of equal sections.
If you ever use rehab, it's probably one of the nicest polishes to use because they actually put a scent in it. And, you know, most polishes just smell like solvents, and, you know, this one has like a nice strawberry fragrance, and it actually changes the whole experience of polishing. Like, whenever I can use rehab, I try to, because it's such an enjoyable experience. You know, with the fragrance, and then, you know, once you get to the wipe off.
I'll wipe it off now, but the wipe off of rehab is just next level. I don't think there's any other polish on the market that wipes off as nice as, I mean, just look at that. It just comes right off. Super easy. Rehab is definitely a very enjoyable experience, and if you're just doing a one step, you know, you're not going crazy like I am on this car, where, you know, it's jet black paint, it's screwed up, and really screwed up, and you're trying to get to that like crazy level. This customer wants it as, you know, close to perfect as possible. Rehab is a great one-step polish, and that's why I like it for PPF too. So the film already looks night and day difference. Obviously there's still some swirls and stuff in there, but I mean, just looking from the bottom to the top, this looks so much clearer. The film looks, you know, so much better. There's no, you know, all those water spots and things are gone, so it's definitely doing exactly what we want, and you know, exactly kind of what I expected it to do. So I'm actually going to knock out, did those 2 sections, I'm going to knock out this whole front area in one pass.
Now, when you're polishing PPF, I don't have to worry about it too much on the hood, because especially this film job is all wrapped over the edges. But if you do have a PPF job and maybe the edges aren't wrapped, or you're like working on a fender or a bumper where there might be seams, be very careful polishing around those seams. Try to avoid them as much as you can. And if you do run over them, like, you know, luckily you're using a foam pad, a very fine finishing foam pad, and you should be going, you know, quick on speed like I am right now, you know, to basically to not damage that seam. You don't want to sit there kind of burning the edge on the seam and possibly, you know, lift up that edge, or, you know, also putting, like, you know, straight compound residue in the seam of the PPF, because it can be kind of hard to get out once you do that. So my polish here is breaking down. The rehab is finishing up here in its work time. Yeah.
That's basically it for the film. I'll give that a nice wipe off. And again, super easy wipe off. The film is by no means perfect, but it looks night and day better. There's still some swirls in there. And that's just the reality of some of this, you know, old film, and especially if it wasn't taken care of and washed right. That self-healing layer is only so thick, so whatever's there now is forever in the film. But you stand back a couple feet, you know, I'm a couple feet back, and I even have direct lights right on it, like correction style lights, and it looks freaking phenomenal. So that's the process for the PPF. So I'm gonna go through, hit the fenders, hit the bumper. Like I said, be careful around, you know, those seams and edges. I believe there's a seam somewhere down here, so we're gonna be a little careful around there. Go over it quickly and try not to hit them too much. And that'll be it for the PPF polishing process. Alrighty, so we are back with day 2 for me, but you're probably 40 minutes into this video or something. It's looking great. Obviously, all the paint is dialed in, ready to go. I walked in this morning and it just pops. But the one thing, as soon as you get the paint looking good, you start to see everything else that looks bad. And I noticed right away, glass is super etched, super water spotted for some reason, particularly the back glass. Front windshield seems to be okay. So we're gonna go ahead and polish the glass and just get that final dialed in so that we can kind of get finished with the polishing process and start to get to coating. So with glass, I always prefer to go with a fiber-based pad. So I'm just gonna pick 5-inch machine with a fiber-based pad. So I usually just go straight microfiber. Fiber-based are always gonna work best for your glass surfaces. The fibers just allow it to get into the pores of the glass a lot better. And again, you're not really worried about micro marring with glass surfaces. And then any compound. So I'm just gonna pick Kochikami H9. I've been loving this stuff lately. But any sort of paint compound is gonna be perfect for the glass. So once you've got your machine all set up, and this is the same process as you would for the paint. You're just gonna run the machine over a couple passes on the glass, and that's going to get off all that etching, get off all the water spotting, and get it to a nice crystal clear glass surface again.
And again, with glass, you're not worried about, you're not going to be removing swirls or anything from glass with this process. This is just kind of cleaning it in preparation for coating and removing some of that etching and water spotting. And you're not worried about like haze or anything crazy with glass. Glass is super, super hard. So you can use whatever pad, whatever compound, whatever polish you want. Again, my preference was just sticking with a nice paint compound, microfiber pad, and that will do you just fine. And you don't need to spend a lot of time on this either.
It will come out just fine. And what I'm gonna do is load myself up, put me some dots on each one of my sections so that I can just keep rocking and rolling and not have to stop to put it on the pad. And there we go. So we will wipe that off. That'll be all good to go. We'll knock that out over the rest of the pieces of glass. Luckily, it's a pretty small car, so it won't take long. Side windows, I'll probably knock it out with a 3-inch just because the windows are a little smaller, and probably have to use by hand with a microfiber to get in some of the tight edges. But yeah, that's a glass polishing procedure. And if your glass is water spotted and has some etchings and stuff on there, you definitely want to do that. And then also, if you're prepping to apply glass coating, this is the prep process to make sure that glass coating bonds properly. So we'll knock that out, and then we'll get on to next and final steps. So I wanted to stop real quick while we are just getting finished up and pulling the tape and go over if you were to make a mistake possibly and just like lather compound or polish in some cracks or crevice or in your sensors. Ideally you're using minimal polish, and so you're not going to just like cake this with compound and polish. This was here from the previous person that polished it, likely the factory or someone that waxed the car, because every sensor and even the back emblem on the back bumper here is just caked with compound or polish or wax residue. So you can use a couple different things to kind of get this stuff out. You could use like a Q-tip, you can use like a toothpick. I generally, just do the old barbaric method of you know, using my nail or wrapping my finger in a microfiber towel and doing it that way, and then also just using some panel prep to help kind of get that off. So that's what I'll do here, is like I can literally just fit my nail kind of perfectly in here and kind of dislodge that a little bit, get it, you know, out of there as much as possible, because it is solidified at this point. A little bit of panel prep on a microfiber towel, and then you can kind of just get in there with your nail as well and do your final cleanup, and that will be able to clean that sensor out perfectly, and then you don't have all that compound and polish residue. And it's just nice final finishing for doing this, because if you polish the whole car and then you know, leave your compound or polish residue, bunch of cracks and crevices, no matter how good your polish job was and your coating job was, that's just, you know, gonna take away from the whole look of the car. So just your final details there. Alrighty, so we are making good progress here. We've finished up the correction on the GT4. It was a lot more intensive than I originally thought, so there's a lot of stuff to kind of go over here in this little conclusion. So we started off, as you guys probably saw, with the Oreo pad from Buff and Shine with Jess Car Correction Compound, followed by Perfect Finish and the Buff and Shine white pad. That worked really well for most of the car. I actually did cheat a little bit and switched over to Koch Chemie H9 02, as well as Buff and Shine's blue and white like hybrid wool pad. That actually worked a lot better, because the lower parts of the car, specifically the plastics, the bumpers and the rockers, were absolutely destroyed. There's some spots on this back bumper that even like sanding and whatever wouldn't even take out. I don't know what they did back here, previous owner, but it is trashed. So that combo was able to get a little bit more deep, a little bit more aggressive, and knock that stuff out to an extent that I'm happy with. So we did that. Obviously polished the PPF with rehab and the white pad really quickly, just to kind of bring out that gloss, and then just finished up polishing all the windows with Koch Chemie H9 and a microfiber pad, just to kind of buzz over those, get them nice and clean, and they're looking really good. Like the reflection of the light now, you're not seeing all that little water spot and kind of etching like haze. It's just nice crystal clear glass. So we're making good progress here. Now, final step. Ideally, you wouldn't be going this intensive as I did. This project turned out to be a lot crazier than I thought. So I was hammering this thing, and it created a lot of dust. If I had like an air system in here, I could probably blow off a lot of the dust and be okay. But to the level that I have on here, it's just going to be easier if I just pull the car out really quickly, give it a rinse down with a pressure washer, and then bring it in, blow dry it off as much as possible, and then just dry it with some microfiber towels. That's just going to get all the dust out, and it's just going to be a much cleaner coating application then. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead, get all this tape pulled off, get it popped outside, rinse it, pull it in, blow it, and dry it off, and then we're going to move into part 3, which will be applying the coatings and getting into the coating application. So that'll be it for this video. Appreciate you guys sticking along for this probably extremely long video of me yapping and talking about God knows what, but I appreciate you tuning along, and if you learned something, leave it in the comments. Let me know what you thought and how the GT4 turned out, and we'll see you in part 3 of the next video.